Hello, everyone. Father Jared coming to you. And the order for these 40 days, over the season of Lent, we have a lot of different practices that we might do, such as fasting and abstinence on Ash Wednesday, Good Friday, which are the required days for fasting, but then also, abstinence, that is abstaining from meat on every Friday of Lent, including Ash Wednesday, which begins Lent as well. And whatever our individual practices are, Stations of the Cross, confession, yada, yada, yada. A lot of good things happen. But one thing that, as I was reflecting on the season of Lent and what it's intended to do for us as individuals, and what the real thing that is meant to be the fruit on the other side, because, we may do the same thing year after year, which is a good thing, like not discounting the value of whatever your yearly practices are. I know I have those same things that I've done year after year because it's fruitful for me. But I think oftentimes too, it's something that then just comes to an end. We get to Easter and boom, we go back to the way things are. An extent that's supposed to be the way it is at Easter. Easter's supposed to be this return of normalcy. We're supposed to celebrate. We're supposed to, not normalcy, but instead we are supposed to celebrate a whole new beginning. The eternal eighth day, Christ rises from the dead. And so there's this way in which all the things that we've been depriving ourselves of now return to help us to live out the reality of the resurrection, because now some of the joys that we are depriving ourselves of are back. But I think even at a deeper level, it's supposed to be a transformative experience. In the same way that Christ suffered and died for us and then rose in glory, we too need to view Lent as an opportunity for us to rightly order our lives. And by that I mean, how can we order our lives better in the everyday too, not just merely prayer lives, which is of course of the utmost importance. So certainly a goal perhaps this Lent, if you don't already have one, is for a daily prayer practice to take place, for you to begin reflecting upon, like, how do I have a daily prayer practice that works for me? You probably can't do, you may not be able to do an entire holy hour or, whatever. You can start small. So every day I'm going to wake up, do a morning offering and nightly examination of conscience, and then continue the practice after Lent's over. Or perhaps, I've never really prayed the rosary before, but I want to start doing that. So I'm going to start out by just doing a decade of the rosary throughout Lent and then continue that practice after it ends, just as a way of beginning to pray. And then proceeding on and on and on. And then I think the next thing that comes for us is then also ordering other aspects of our life. Because whenever we rightly order our lives, it also opens us up to greater levels of friendship and relationship with others, but also with the Lord. So, if I am able to excise certain things from my life, so, 1 year in college seminary, it just became very convicted that I needed to give up video games, that I really, really needed to give those up. And just in prayer, it became very clear that the Lord desired for me to do that. So I did. And it was great, because then what I experienced after that was all of a sudden I started hanging out with other guys in the seminary more. My grades went up, and I also had more free time in prayer and began getting better sleep too. And, so sometimes bringing order to our lives can be by getting rid of something, by removing it. And I think that's something to reflect on. Are there things that we kind of just do because, well, we've always done them and we think we have to, but in reality we don't have to. We can give up whatever it may be, whether it's video games perhaps for you, perhaps it's, a good amount of screen time, whatever, something of that sort. But then also in addition by just bringing order to our everyday surroundings. There's a great and popular phrase from Jordan Peterson, which goes, you basically start by cleaning your room. So clean your room, and that's an excellent place to start changing the world. And it has a great amount of wisdom to it, because it sounds very banal, very simple, very trite. But what happens whenever we begin to bring order to our everyday surroundings is, well, then our lives become more order. We begin to, that order kind of spreads out. So we get a room in order, and then, okay, now my room's in order. Now maybe I can work on my office. Okay, now my office is in order. Maybe I can begin to actually have a greater impact on those around me. So maybe I can begin to order like my family life a little bit better. So that way we can carve out game night, date night with my spouse, which, by the way, big advocate for date night for all couples. So even though it's maybe perhaps doesn't sound very Lenten, I'd even suggest that maybe as a married couple, if you guys don't do a regular date night too, perhaps for Lent, just consider doing that, because I bet you that would just, the improvements you would see in your own marriage would just be rather amazing. But you're going to get to my point. Like, by cleaning our room, by starting small in those ways of order, it then begins to allow us to ripple out, and our lives can begin to become ordered in all their respects. And I think that little way of beginning to do that then also helps us to order our soul. So St. Josemaria also, like, this always hurts me a little bit because, my closet can be a bit of a mess oftentimes. And he said that I can show you the state of a man's soul if you simply let me look at his closet. And I was like, ooh, that's a little bit harsh. But there's, again, like, it's not the be all end all, but it's not necessarily like true in every respect. But there is a level of truth there that wherever we allow chaos to reign in kind of our environment, well, then we also have a tendency to allow it to reign within our souls. And the confusion that can be sown by the world, by our own experiences, the doubts that come into our hearts, by beginning to clean our rooms, our closets, offices, living spaces, and just by ordering our, marital lives, family lives, work lives, we begin to, so basically organizing them is, I guess, another way, more modern term for order, but basically whenever we begin to bring organization, order to those aspects of our life, it begins to also have an effect interiorly on our soul and begins to help us to rightly calibrate, and it allows us to settle in and to ultimately dig deep to discover our Lord and what He's calling us to. And so I want to encourage you to look for ways to perhaps increase order within your own personal life. So first, your prayer life, order within perhaps your environment. So like, is your car like mine is an absolute mess, and maybe do you need to clean it up? I know I need to do that this Lent, so that's a task. And figure out how to keep it clean is also another task. But then also then family life. So like in my relationships, how can I rightly order those better? How can I make regular contact with those people that I really value, those friendships I really value? So that way it's like, okay, every month, this friend that I don't often see, but I really want to like keep up that friendship with. Perhaps every month we get coffee, or we get dinner, or, like somebody that, like family member that lives further away, like I haven't visited them in a couple of years ever since COVID, but I know I really should. Well, perhaps I need to plan like a yearly trip to, to visit them, even if it's only for a day or two. Just making that effort to rightly order our lives in those kind of ways. But those are just some practical tips for Lent, but the order of these 40 days, as the title of this video is just simply an invitation for you to reflect on what are those areas of your life that need order, that need to be brought into a right relationship with others around you, with yourself, with your surroundings. So with that, I hope you all have a blessed Lent. Hope it's a fruitful one that bears much fruit in your souls and pours many graces upon your family, yourself, and ultimately upon your church. God bless you, and we'll see you around.